Hello, I am Laura Fickett from Fickett Financial Coaching, here to bring you Chick Chat and Chill. I am your co-host. I love to help people make more money, manage it better, retain it to build their wealth. I do free consultations. I tell people you have nothing to lose, everything to gain by talking to a financial coach, because who doesn't want more in less amount of time? Who knows how long we're going to be here? So if you need a free consultation, reach out to me. And now I'm going to introduce you to Antoinette, our co-host.
Hello, I'm Antoinette. I'm the founder of Pixel This, and we believe great design really transform a business or a brand. And we've got the privilege of working with so many household names like Unilever and Snapple and Mott's and all these great ones. But it's not just the big guys. We love working on the small businesses, and we want to bring your vision to life, whatever that is, whether you're looking for a redesign or just up your game. We just love to help you. So definitely reach out. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about cars. So, whether it's, does it make sense to repair yours or buy new? And then if you buy, what are things to consider? I think it's a stressful time when, it's kind of, that you're initially excited. I think you're excited when you get it, but those couple weeks or
until you make the car payment.
Yeah, exactly. It's great till the bill comes in, but I think it's a very stressful time for people, and I'm sure Laura's going to give all sorts of great advice with finances and stuff. So is there anything that you like, the real low-hanging fruit of what you want to?
Well, I mean, the super low-hanging fruit is people always ask me, like, do I buy new, do I buy used, or do I lease? And I say lease is only a good option in very limited circumstances, usually just for businesses, very, very limited circumstances. And you can run all the calculations if you want, and I've run them for so many clients, but lease is usually the last option. Buying new, also not a great option, because everybody's heard, you drive it off the lot and it loses like $10,000, and that's true. And so my number one recommendation for people is always buy used, but with research, right? You want to make sure. I'm in Florida. I wanted to make sure when I bought, when my husband was looking for a vehicle, that it was a used truck that never touched snow. Like, we didn't want it to touch salt or sand. We didn't want it to be by the ocean. We didn't want it. We wanted it to have one owner. We wanted to make sure, that it didn't have any kind of damage from an accident thing. So you have to do some research on the used, but you can save a lot of money. So that's like the low hanging fruit. People, the first question is like, do I buy new? Do I buy used? Or do I buy, do I lease? And they've said to me, you've never bought a new vehicle? Well, yes, I did buy a new vehicle once, but because it had just come out. And so if you want something that just came out and there's no used on the market and you have the ability to buy it and the tax circumstances are correct in that I owned a business, and so I was able to take advantage of bonus depreciation, which could be a whole nother topic. When all the stars aligned, sure, I bought a new vehicle, but the stars don't align that often.
Yeah, I've definitely done kind of all of the above. I bought a used, I bought new, I've leased, and I think I also kind of with the leased, I think there are also some other options. I know people that they have to have the latest and greatest and whatever. They're the ones they'll run to stand in line for the latest iPhone. You know who you are, So
half of our listeners.
So when it comes like a new car's out, or they just like the new car smell or whatever it is. So in something like that, like if you need a new car every couple years, leasing might be a good option. If also you don't commute long distances, you
don't care about your finances.
No, but if you're really going to buy a new car every year that's going to depreciate as soon as you drive off the lot, like in the end, leasing might be a good option. I personally didn't like it for other reasons. This didn't happen to me, but for example, like if I'm trying to think. So had to form all these thoughts. So anyway,
accidents, scratches,
yeah, all that
damage,
stuff.
mileage.
Yeah.
Like we could go into a
Yeah.
lot.
So
Does anybody read lease agreements?
yeah,
I do.
no, I ended up leasing a car and I didn't, I guess, do enough research on the car. The wheel had like an aluminum rim that held the tire on. So every time I drove, I'd have a blowout or like it was ridiculous. And I got locked into this lease. And it was just terrible. It got to the point where I just parked the car on the driveway and started driving a different car because I just felt unsafe in it. And I didn't like that. You don't own it. And then you're kind of in this trap situation of waiting for the lease to expire or do something. And then the other thing I hear a lot of lease companies do, just buy or be wise if you have a lease, a lot of them, and I heard this from someone who actually works in this field, they'll send out a letter saying this was damaged. It had excessive wear and tear or whatever. You owe us, $500. And it's not that your car had that. They send that out to everybody. That's what this person said. We don't care how the car comes in. We send it out to everybody because a certain percentage of people will just pay.
Oh.
And it's not that they'll go and, go after you. I'm sure if you destroyed the car, they will. But there's a lot of people that just pay. So
there's a car salesman listening right now.
Don't tell my secrets.
I want to jump on that podcast. That's why it's not live.
You
no calling today.
You got to get angry in the comments.
This is just our opinion.
Yeah.
Calm yourself down. Go back to the dealership. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
So another low-hanging fruit is that if an ounce of preparation before you walk into a dealership can save you pounds of money. Seriously. And I'm talking just simple little things like what is sales tax on a vehicle? Know what you want to pay. So say you see an ad and you're like, oh my gosh, that's the perfect vehicle. I absolutely want to go test drive it. And it's, I don't know, $40,000. And so calculate how much, if I bought this plus sales tax, plus registration, tax, title, registration, everything, this is how much it would be if they give it to me for this price that it's advertised at. So now say we come up to $45,000. You need to walk into the dealership with that number because they play around with the numbers.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's like a low hanging fruit. They're going to play around with the numbers. So you could walk in and they would say, well, the first thing they're going to say is, what are you looking for a payment? Okay, well, I always say I'm not looking for a payment. I'm looking for a price. And because they'll get you into whatever payment. You may have a 172-month loan.
Yeah.
If they can get you one, they will, to get your payment down to where it needs to be. And then, you can pass that payment down to your grandchildren. So so payment, you don't want to talk payment, you want to talk price, and you want to know what the price is because you want to get money off the price. So in that example, $40,000 vehicle is going to cost $45,000. That's what you've calculated. When you walk in there, you want them to take off a little. On a used vehicle, that somebody has traded that vehicle in and they're trying to make a percentage. And it has to be a win-win. They have to make money. It's, don't walk in there thinking you're going to get them down so much that they're not going to make money. That's not the way to do business. They have to make money, but you want money off. So anything that they take off the price is a win for you. Anything they get above what they paid is a win for them. And that's where you need to be, somewhere in the middle. But so with that example, 45 is the number. So you say to them, okay, I want the vehicle to be 38,000 instead of 40. And they're like, okay, with tax and title and whatever, we're not going to add anything else. It's going to be 45. And you're like, wait a second. If I'm taking 2,000 off, now we should be at 43. If you know the number, you can have that conversation. If you don't know the number, you may just assume, okay, tax, title, registration, whatever, must be another 7,000, and there we go. And they've added in a $995 doc fee and $100 this fee and $500 this fee and whatever, and you don't know because they're going to hide that in the information. So knowing your numbers before you walk in is great. And the other thing is don't lose your negotiation power. So you can't be afraid to walk away. that's as simple as it is. If you walk in there saying, this is what I'm going to pay, and it doesn't work to that scenario, you can't be afraid to walk away. I have had people, and I have said, well, okay, we're just going to leave. And that's when the real negotiation kicks in, because they have somebody that wants to buy and they want to keep you. So that's when they're more willing to do that win-win or no deal.
Yeah. And the other thing, keep in mind, there are certain times that are better to shop than others. Dealers have, there are certain quotas that they have to meet. So at the end of the month, the end of the quarter, and the end of the year, usually they're willing to go a little bit more below what they would typically do at, the beginning of the year and the first of the month. I mean, they do offer specials and stuff, but typically that's when you're going to negotiate the best deal. And some other things to keep in mind, which I learned the hard way, is when you're getting your lease, I was getting a work vehicle and I have an LLC. So I was like, oh, not a lease. I was getting a work vehicle and I was getting the loan. And I was like, oh, I'll just put it under my business name. It would make more sense. It's a business vehicle. I didn't realize that finance charges are way higher for businesses versus individuals. If you have, like me, a sole proprietor LLC, I could have just done it under my name and it still could have been a business vehicle and it would have just been fine. And in the end, I'm paying a lot more in interest because it was my bad and I didn't do my homework. And,
In research, really, talk to your insurance agent. Say, I'm looking to buy this vehicle. How much is the insurance going to cost? In that scenario, they would have said, well, Antoinette, if you put it under your own name, it's going to cost less. So she would have probably figured that out. Or like you'll have to put it into the, commercial insurance or whatever. But also talk to your CPA or your accountant, because they can tell you, especially business owners, if there's any kind of bonus depreciation or any kind of incentives to buy a vehicle this year, whether the IRS, every year there's new rules that come out, whether it was 100%, it could be 80%, 60%, 40%, whatever the bonus depreciation is. So they can work with you too on those numbers before you even walk in the door. And I tell people, if you need a car just to get you from A to B, and you don't really care, then that's a different scenario of where I don't really love to drive, so I need to drive what I love, because that makes me feel better when I'm driving. And so I tell people, if you're that type of person, then work hard to save up or do whatever you need to do to buy what you love, because then you'll stay in it longer. So the truck I'm driving now, I've had for 15 years. It's a 20-year-old truck. They don't make them anymore. I love it. Although this morning I did wake up and saw that it was bleeding pink. So I know. It needs some TLC.
Yeah.
But it does cost me less to fix it than to have a car payment. And I love it. Like, I love the vehicle. And so if you love what you're driving, you will keep it longer. And maybe you can't afford it in the beginning, so then wait a year. Like, do what you can to wait a year so that you can buy what you love. And for those of you that are like, well, I really love a Ferrari. All right. Let's be reasonable. Okay. Let's be reasonable. What you love within your budget. Because if you just go out and you buy something that you don't love, then you're going to want to trade it in 3 years.
Yeah.
For when we were shopping for our daughter, I was like, okay, I want everything. Like, I want her to have every single thing that it can possibly think of, because we want to set her up for success, that she doesn't want a new vehicle for like 10 years while she pays off her student loans and things like that. And so, if you're thinking, well, I really love having a sunroof and this one doesn't have it, so I guess I just, but I don't want to walk out of the dealership. Wait and get the sunroof, because you don't really understand, but it's going to make you happier and it will make you keep the car longer. And the longer you keep the car, the more financially sound your investment, and I say that loosely, in that vehicle is.
I think another good thing, just to go back to the loan process, I think it's also smart to, rather than sit at the dealer and let them pick the loan for you, you could go, like, let's say you bank at a credit union, maybe check what their car rate loans are. You might be able to get a better deal. And then if you know the price that you're willing, like the 45, that it should be, and you already have a loan secured, it's going to be really easy for you to walk out, know what your payment is. There's going to be no games because they'll always, I won't say always, but I find that, I'll go through the numbers and I'll catch them a lot. Like, what's this? No, 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 that's like an extra fee. And they'll add it in to make, even though like Laura said, they'll say they'll take 2,000 off. They'll bury those fees elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have your amount in loan, that deletes all of that. But then kind of back to what you were saying with the,
most dealers do get a kickback if they use their financing. So then they should share that with you if you're going to use their financing.
Yeah, for sure.
Win-win or no deal.
Yeah, but some things too to consider also I've had this problem where, I'll fall in love with the car and I always end up, sometimes I'll be like, oh, this is the car I want. I see it on the road, drool's coming out of my mouth. I'm like, that's what I want. Like,
They see her a mile away when she walks into
yeah. But then like I'll go and I'll take a test drive. I'm like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. One thing I highly recommend is go to other dealerships and see like within what you like and test other vehicles in that. And I was shocked that sometimes I get swayed out of what I thought was going to be my next car. And I'll find a car that's way less with way more features. And it has like better incentives and, or a better like maintenance plan where it's like free oil changes. These are all factored in. So that happened to me a couple times. And I think that's also an important thing to consider.
And if you're going to buy from a place, I feel like you should respect the place. So I went to test drive a car at a place and I showed up at a nicer dealership with like ripped jeans on and whatever. But they automatically, I guess, judged me incorrectly that I wasn't going to be able to buy the vehicle I was test driving. And I thought, I don't want to give this dealership my business. Like, I don't care how much I did like the test drive. I liked the car, but I was like, I don't want to give these people my money. And so I'm going to go somewhere else. And so, we did talk the numbers and I did walk away and I'm sure they thought, oh, well, she couldn't afford that car anyway. And, I almost felt like calling them back with the pretty woman, like driving back there with the car and being like, oh, do you remember me? Like, I came here last week for a test drive and you didn't want to wait on me. Big mistake, huge. I wanted to do the little pretty woman, but I didn't. But if a dealership is not treating you well, or it's not exactly that you want, like, then yeah, go to another dealership or go shop around. Absolutely. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, like falling in love with a car, is broaden your horizons, but not too much. Talk to your mechanic too. Some mechanics for like $50 or $100, they will either go or you can bring the car there and they will look through a used car for you. Excellent. Like, well worth it. It's kind of like a home inspection, which Antoinette owns a home team inspection firm as well. And so she can attest to how important that is for a home. Mechanic can do that for a car. And the other part about this is think about, what if this car were to break down? Can I afford repairs? Okay, so to give you an example, I'm going to use my daughter. My younger daughter wanted to buy a BMW. She's in college. I don't know if any of you have college kids or know anything about college, but the word college and broke. Like, they go hand in hand over here. And they do for her as well. So she saw, oh, I can get this BMW for like $20,000. And I'm like, that's fantastic. Like, I think that's a great price for a BMW if you like BMWs. But what about when you need brakes and rotors on that vehicle? Let's think about this. Like, if you're going to get like something in the Honda, Nissan, Toyota type thing, and you need brakes and rotors, like how much is that going to cost versus like brakes and rotors? We're talking maintenance stuff. I'm not talking anything big, brakes and rotors, right? Brakes and rotors for a BMW, probably twice as much as like a Honda Accord or something like on that range. Then, you want brakes and rotors for a Maserati, probably twice as much as the BMW. So even if you can afford the car, think if you can afford like to just do maintenance on the car because there's electric cars right now where they have like a T symbol on them. I don't want to like get in trouble for saying the name. It looks like an IUD actually, but anyway. Those are going for like pretty cheap right now. But what if you need to replace the battery? Like, can you afford maintenance on the vehicle? So, like I said, just a little bit of research and a little bit of preparation. And if you don't know, like, what you should be preparing, like I said, the insurance person, the mechanic, the CPA, talk to these people and they will help you with the information that you need before you shop for the car. And then, like, when my husband was shopping for a car, he said, oh, I want something like sporty, because he had given his car to our daughter. And he was looking like at what I would say is like the typical type sports cars. You know, people look at Mustangs, not that he did, honey, if you're watching, I know you are Camaro, like Corvette type of guy, like, let's not have an argument about this. But, you know, those types of sporty cars are like the Supra or things like that. And I thought, I prefer Italian cars, you know? And so I'm looking at, he didn't even think to look at the next, what I would consider like the next level cars. But I do the finances. So I'm like, can this work into our budget and everything like that? So don't assume that you can't get the car that you want. Don't like pigeonhole yourself into a certain area. Talk to your accountant, you know, like see if it works. Do the research before you actually go and are willing to sign on the dotted line. And you'll be so happy that you did.
And then some things to consider of, like, if you have a car, like Laura loves hers, and sometimes it makes sense, you know, it's if maintenance is fairly low and stuff like that. But there comes a time where if it starts breaking down a lot, you know, it seems like every month it's something.
I feel like she's talking about me, like, right now.
Maybe you need to listen. No, but if every month it's something, or even if it's, let's say, something, it's been good all along, but now it's something huge. Like, this is a true story. So I had an Audi TT, and I love that car, driving along. All of a sudden, the engine blew up. Like, it was this whole big thing. It was just terrible. So the turbine blew and all these things got sucked into the engine, and like everything went kablooey. So I called the dealership.
It's a mechanical term.
Yeah, kablooey, which is. But I called the dealership, and they said, you know, I explained the situation. They're like, okay, just drive it here, really, you know, whatever. It was like, you know, so I'm
not going to do any extra damage.
No. So,
why call a tow truck?
So I drove it there, and then when in driving it there, it was 3 miles over 50,000, which it was insured for 5 years, 50. I explained all this to the dealership, but when I got there, they refused to honor the warranty. And then you know, they were looking
and, so she set
looking.
The car on fire, blew up the dealership.
No, so at the end, I needed all this stuff. So I remember when I went to pick up the car, they're like, oh, ding, 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 you won. I'm like, what did I win? They go, the biggest car bill.
Oh.
So the repair was $10,500. And I should have honestly just walked away. But like a moron, I'm like, okay, here's my credit card, you know. So I ended up buying, and then as I'm paying for it, I go, okay, so how long is this engine insured for? And they go, it's not. I was like, what? Like, yeah, the initial warranty is just with that, you know, 5 year. That was just with the car. This new part isn't insured for anything. So the same thing could happen again. And then I talked to somebody else who had the same car, and they had a similar issue with theirs. So that was a problem with that engine. So again, really think, like, if you get a repair that's, let's say, 50% of the value of what your car is, then walk away. I think that then it's time to start looking for a new car.
Time to get the divorce. It's not cheaper to keep her at that point in time.
No. And I think some other things to consider, because some people like love their cars, but you know, you might be emotionally attached to it, but also think like, in newer cars, there's so many good safety features that weren't around back then, or just comfort features like things like Android Play and I forgot what the
Bluetooth?
no, where they have now, like with my car.
I don't have Bluetooth. Have Bluetooth in my truck.
But I have a thing where, like, I always used to get a navigation system. And I still have one in my car, but with this one, you could just plug your phone and every app that's on your phone is accessible through the dashboard. Mm-hmm. So you can use Waze or Google Maps and stuff like that. So you could save a navigation system and, there's certain... And then for me, like, I'm used to driving 2-seater sports cars. And then when I needed one, because I have like ladders hanging out the back, I had to get like an SUV, and I had to get rid of my stick shift. And it was so upsetting. But
for those of you younger listeners, that's a manual transmission. Forget it. You're not buying one.
But I had, so I ended up getting this car, and because I knew I'd feel like I was driving a bus, so I wanted every possible safety feature. So I have cameras from above and the sides and warning, and that made me feel very comfortable.
A bus? It's such a small SUV.
When you're used to a 2-seater car, that thing's immense. Oh my God.
Are you crazy?
No, but this is, back to your other comment with the, with the dealership, no kidding. So when I bought my first stick shift, so I decided I wanted to buy a stick shift, and I had my heart set on this car, and I went to the dealer and I said, I want to take a test drive in this car, but I can't drive a stick shift. So can you take me for a ride? And he's looking at me.
He's going to take you for a ride. All right.
But it was like Saturday. He was busy. He's just like, you're wasting my time. Like, you stupid college kid, So we get in the car and we drive around the block, and he's pulling back into the parking lot. I'm like, can you take it on the highway? He's like, no, we're done. We're done. And I'm like, okay. So we park, and I'm like, okay, I'll take it. And he's like, what? So I'm like, can I take it today? And he's like, yeah. So we got everything ready, and he's going over the car with me, and he's like, how are you going to drive it home? And I'm like, I guess I'm going to learn how to drive a stick shift. So he's like, how? And I go, well, if you had to teach somebody in 2 sentences or left, because I don't want you blabbing on and on, just what would you tell them? So he gave me,
his the clutch slow is what
he's like, it's all in the knees and something else. I was like, okay. And I stalled 2 times. So I did pretty good. But I can't believe we were almost ran out of time or whatever. It's running low. So I want you to join us next week, because we're going to have a juicy topic talking about intimacy and sex and all those interesting topics. I think girls and guys would really benefit from listening in on this, and just talk about expectations and stuff like that. So definitely join us next week. But
and before we even go there, I did already have a conversation with Antoinette about keeping this in the PG-13 rating for our viewers and listeners. And so hopefully we won't have any.
No, I'll just be naked from the waist down, and you won't know.
I don't know if this is making a noise, right? I have a microphone. But man, the car buying was just so easy. We didn't get to the back seat or anything like that. We were all good.
I have stories.
No, we don't want that. We don't want that. Next week, though, we'll reel it in. But I think it's an important topic to talk about, and it'll be a fun one for sure.
Yeah. So I guess thanks for driving with us this week. And remember, never stop laughing.
And never stop learning. We'll see you soon.